trusses. So our trusses are actual trusses. So they go from one side of the axle to the other. You don't have to weld them to any type of cast or anything like that. You're only welding them to the tubes. And our trusses, when you receive them, are fully built. Other than like you have to weld the lower control arm mounts on in the proper location, and you have to weld the sway bar mounts in the proper location. But the upper control arm mounts, the track bar mounts, the coil buckets, those are all in the correct location, and we're going to go over front and rear trusses today. So we have 3 different options of track bar. So we have the coil mount with the factory track bar mount built into it, so that's for factory style steering. We have over the knuckle, or OTK, that is for over the knuckle steering. So if you do like a GM 1 ton where you flip it on the top side of the knuckle and then the drag link comes down to those. And then we have crossover high steer. So this is what you would use if you have crossover steering or high steer, or like a JK axle, that's considered crossover, so you get these. So each of these will go onto the truss in the proper location. Before you receive it, we weld it all together. Then going from there, we have coil buckets. So coil buckets we have with and without the factory track bar mount. We also have stretch coil buckets. So the stretch coil buckets work up to 3 inches of stretch. So our standard coil bucket is 0 to 1.5 inches of stretch, and then from the stretch coil buckets are 1.5 to 3 inches of stretch. And those get combined with our steering stretch kit, so you can move them forward on like the TJs, and then for like an XJ or something like that, we recommend just the standard coil buckets. You can move the axle. That's what these coil cups go on here. They locate side to side using the slot, and then essentially you stitch weld them in 4 different spots around to hold them in place. And then this top has a threaded insert where you can put your bump stop extension. So 3 different options essentially of coil buckets. Then we have 2 different options of upper control arm mounts. These are the ones for our red polyurethane bushing. They take a 12mm bolt, same as the JK upper. And then we have a rock crawler version, which is designed for a rock crawler build-a-ball joint, or a Curry Johnny joint housing can go in there, and then you just stitch weld that housing into the upper. So, and then sway bar mounts as well. The coil buckets come with shock mounts on them already. So essentially it's a super easy install. When you get the truss, you're going to clean off your whatever axle you have. So we offer Dana 30, Dana 44 for Wagoneer, both Ford Dana 44s, the radius arm and the leaf sprung. The radius arm version has to be the one with welded wedges, not the cast wedges, because when you cut the cast wedge apart, your tube is just going to fall out of the end, or your C is just going to fall out. So, and then the high pinion version of the Dana 44 that's leaf sprung is what our truss is designed around. So those years are about 73 to 77 for the radius arm, and then 78 and 79 for the leaf sprung. This is a Dana 60 truss for a Ford, but it's only for the 78 and 79 Snow Fighter Dana 60 that came in like the F350s. So all these are made out of quarter. It's Dana 60, so it's big. And then when you receive the truss, it looks similar to this. This is the truss for a TJ Rubicon 44 with an OTK mount on it and stretch or standard coil buckets. So then the lower control arm mount options that would come with this are you could get the standard height or standard location or our high clearance version. The high clearance version requires adjustable control arms, but it essentially mounts the arm at axle centerline, so there's nothing hanging below the axle for like rock crawling and stuff like that. Is there any questions?
Yeah, Vince wants you to show him one for a full 14-bolt rear.
This is yours, Vince. This is your exact truss right here. So
Tanner knew you were going to ask that question.
Yeah, that's why I brought that out here. So let's see if there's anything else.
So explain that to me.
Yeah,
I
so
don't get
we're gonna
the
work
joke.
onto the rear trusses now. So your rear truss works the same. Let's finish on the front truss. To install the front truss, you clean everything off. You set your caster at about 6 degrees and weld the truss on at 0. So your caster is what your drivability in the Jeep is. So the upper ball joint is leaned back 6 degrees from the lower ball joint. Most people think it's the other way around. It's not. You lean it back. So on the front, the caster, essentially is more important than the pinion angle. The pinion angle is important because you don't obviously want driveline vibrations, but the caster is more important than the pinion angle. Compared to the rear, you're pretty much just looking at pinion angle in the rear mostly. So these are the same way. You start with a blank truss, which you can see there's some up on the shelf up there. Then you add the mounts. So the mounts in the rear are not as complicated. You essentially have 2 options. You have the factory style mount. So this is a TJ 8.8 truss. So you get the uppers mounts and then the track bar mount on the truss. Then from there we have coil bucket options, which I didn't grab those, but they slide it. How our trusses are designed, they slide against the truss, and that's what locates the coil buckets on the axle. And then the lower control arm mounts go in factory location. We have standard and then high clearance versions of those as well. And then we also have the sway bar mount for the rear on those. So these we make for 14 volt Dana 60, Ford 8.8, Wagoneer 44, TJ 44, JK 44, JK 44 swap into TJ or ZJ, ZJ 44, ZJ 35, TJ 35, XJ 44, Sterling 10.5 for TJ I do have, which is just standard Sterling housing truss. So there's a ton of different options of trusses for there. And the other mount option is what we call a tri-hat. So the tri-hat is designed around our dual triangulated suspension. So the uppers are triangulated. This is a medium tri-hat, so it uses a 2 3/8 wide joint. Summit machine flex joint is what it's designed. So 2 3/8 wide joint with a 9/16 bolt. And that's designed for the suspension. It can work on other people's suspension as well. I've had numerous amounts of people call in to buy the tri-hat with the truss to work on another suspension of another company. So, and these are all at quarter as well. These mounts come welded on, and you do the same thing. You set your pinion angle, and then you have your truss at 0 from there. And that's pretty much trusses. It's super easy online to order. It walks you through all the different mount options that you can get. And then we build them. We build them to order because there is so many different mount options. So typically it's 7 to 10 business days, and we get that truss shipped out.
And if somebody doesn't know, you can...
Yeah, if you don't know what options you need or anything like that, or you have a question about the axle you have, you can call in, and I can answer, Mary can answer, Jason. We'll get Tammy to that point at some point. But it's just, there's a lot of different options. So if you don't know what you need exactly, just call in. We'll get you set up. And you can buy them without options as well. If you just wanted a completely blank truss, you'll receive it in the mail and it looks exactly like this. So for guys that have a different upper mount that they want, or they're not running coil buckets, they're running coilovers, or typically I don't sell just blank trusses. They'll at least have a track bar mount on them. And sometimes we leave the track bar mount loose because if they're running coilovers, we might shove the track bar mount over farther so it has a longer track bar, which just makes for better geometry. So Vince laughed at the 14 volt. Yeah, that one's yours. So Jason was working on your back half. Well, he's actually working on it right now.
We're going to powder coat it pink too.
For Vince. Yep. We're going to powder coat it pink for him. Truss and all, everything's going to be pink. But that's it on trusses. I guess, is there any more questions that are going to come through? I know that was probably a short one, and I talked really, really fast.
You knew your stuff. Vince said that would be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, to be pink. Yeah. Yeah. We'll do that. Then you got to change the color of your Jeep, which you're probably going to do anyways. So, but yeah, that was it.
It would match the tutu.
Yeah. Yep. So if you guys have any other questions, you can give us a call or shoot us a message on social media. Right now, our texting line is having some issues. And we will see you guys next Tuesday for something.